Hi, my name is Paula Webb. I'm Outreach and Communications Librarian here at the University of South Alabama. Thank you for joining us today. We have the honor of interviewing a Mobile native today who has an amazing and impressive story. Her name is Rosie Seaman. And Rosie, please tell us your story.
Oh my God, Paula, but thank you. You know, I'm a native Mobilian, and I was raised in the corner of Monroe and Jackson. And my family had their grocery store and our home there. Actually, it's where the Mobile Civic Center is today. And of course, we had to move, you know, urban renewal. So, but then I went to, just a few blocks down, I went to the Cathedral Grammar School and church, of course. And then when I got into high school, I tried to continue to go to Mass there because it wasn't that far from.
Now, where did you go to high school at?
Bishop Tulane High School.
Okay.
And it was really there that I saw the bishop several times. He knew me. I volunteered my time a lot at the church for any special events that were going on. Thomas J. Tulane.
Okay.
He served probably longer than any bishop, I think, in the United States. So he built an empire for people. I mean, you know, schools, churches, hospitals. And in fact, just before I came to work he asked me to work for him. He and Father Anthony Zagaby. And so before I went to work there, he had just built Martin Depaul's hospital, a place for black doctors to work and take care of their patients. I thought that was great.
Now, was that a challenging thing back then to find black doctors?
Yeah, there was no integration at all. You know, there was no place they could even go. Women couldn't go into the city. They couldn't go anywhere.
What year was this, you think?
Well, I went to work for him in 1952 when I got out. He asked me to come when I graduated from Tulane. When he built the hospital, that Martin Depaul's hospital, it was I think in 1950. Okay. But Mobile was segregated. I mean, you knew that. I mean, the whole place was. And so he built that hospital to help them have a place to go, African American doctors and their patients.
So after the hospital, you worked there?
I worked there. Fun thing I did do, not fun, it was just exciting. I had a chauffeur that took me every day to pick up the mail and deliver our mail for the bishop, and also to make deposits.
Okay.
And so I did that every morning, and of course in the afternoon I'd work for Father Anthony Zagaby in the mission office, which really people were sending in all kind of things to help the poor in Alabama. We were considered real poor in many of the other states in the United States. But what was fun about Father Zagaby was he was so creative, wrote plays after plays.
Really?
And he started the the Catholic Theater Guild, which is now the Mobile Theater Guild.
Okay.
And he wrote plays, but before he wrote his plays every day, we had a little break. See, he'd send me down the corner to buy about like 6 Hershey bars. That was his weakness.
Oh my goodness.
But he did offer me some. He did. But anyway, I helped him edit the books, the articles. I mean the plays. Excuse me. Helped him edit the plays. So I got my hand, I think, in creativity through him, really. But he did open other theater guilds all around Pritchard, Chickasaw, and Baldwin County. He was an amazing man. But after that, I really didn't want to work anymore. I started my family. And so I think that was the last place I really worked full time. And so then when all my kids were in school, I had 4 children. When they were all in school at St. Pius, I decided to go to work because St. Pius, I had an opening in a kindergarten teacher, and I volunteered my time to teach art because I was, in a sense, creative, you know. So I taught art to the 8th graders. So I wasn't there long, really, when Father Albert Foley called me from Spring Hill College, and he was doing the Head Start program. He had federal money to teach the teachers of poor children, you know. And so everybody knew about Father Albert Foley at that time. It was, of course, everything in the South, Deep South, was segregated. And he was a philosophy of sociology professor, excuse me. And he was a big fighter, strong fighter for civil rights. He really was. And in fact, Spring Hill was the first school, I'm sure because of him, and the Jesuits too, integrated Spring Hill College.
Oh, wow.
And consequently, in the Deep South, others came along, but not as many. Spring Hill was the first in Alabama. Okay. And anyway, Martin Luther King was close to him, and the Birmingham, when he was in Birmingham jail, he wrote a letter about Father Foley and the Jesuits, how remarkable they were and how courageous they were to integrate Spring Hill College. You know, so I thought that was interesting about Martin Luther King, really, you know.
Oh, definitely.
Close to him. But one day I went in his office and I said, Father, can I talk to you, man? He said, sure. And I said, Father, I'd love to get in the homes of these mothers. That's just, you know, the mothers are the child's first teacher. And of course, that's Montessori, and I got my certificate in the Montessori method of education before I really went to work for Father Foley. But I got it from Spring Hill College and St. Nicholas Academy in England.
Yep. Do you
And of
remember
course,
the
you know,
years?
Europe, even Europe and all, in India, in fact. She first started out at school for the poor, but she wound up being the school for the rich, which she is in the United States pretty much, you know, is that. So I told him, I said, I really would love to get in the homes of these mothers and someone to teach it. And he said to me, you know, Rosie, he knew everything about the federal government. He said, Rosie, you know, the federal government requires stations as large as WKRG to do local children's programming, not taping cartoon stuff. He meant programming. And he said, you know, you're made for television and you're creative. He says, I think kids will love to meet you. I said, dear Godfather, I know nothing about, you know, television. He said, you'll learn it. And he picked that phone up and called Mr. Giddens and said, he wants to see you at 2 o'clock. I met Mr. Giddens. He was remarkable. My God, he owned so many theater houses. He owned radio stations. But I knew him because I went to the theaters, you know, that he had. But he was very friendly and kind of relaxed me. He said, Rosie, I really want to know, of course, he and the general manager was with him, Mr. Persons. He said, I really want to know what you want to do on TV.
Wow.
And he said, you know, we're open, you know. And I said, okay. And I said, I thought about this in about 3 hours before I saw him.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I think a children's programming, naturally, I want to do, you know, with my Montessori certificate. And I said, I'd like to have like a little den and a kitchen and and like a little patio thing out so that we could bring animals in and teach about them.
Yeah.
And so he loved the idea, so go with it.
Do you remember what year that was?
Yeah, I know, in 1976, 1 year after that.
Okay.
1 year after that, I won the Alabama's Arts and Humanities Award for the best television series in the state of Alabama.
Amazing.
It was my second year in TV, so that was like I probably came in 74, 75.
Okay.
And it was 76 that I won that. And so,
And what was the title of the show?
she was Rosie's Place.
Oh,
I wanted it to be a home. My montage had this big house and kids growing all over the place. Yvonne, my daughter, played my bear. I had a bear that was real friendly and kind, you know, and helping others. So it was handy dandy, I called him.
Now,
So-
was it a costume?
Yeah, it was costume. Yeah. And Yvonne was used to do my show, because she'd go with me on Sunday to tape the show.
Did you make the costume?
I know we bought one. We found one.
okay.
We had to find one. Anyway, after Rosie's Place, I didn't see Mr. Giddens much after that because he became Voice of America
Wow.
in Washington. So, you know,
Yeah.
but he did ask me before he was gone a lot. He started Congressional Report. It was the longest running one. He founded it. It had all the Alabama Congressional Reports hosting it, and also we included Mississippi and Florida, the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
So he made sure that I would see, because we did taping sometimes in Washington. If, say, for instance, one of the congressmen couldn't get down here,
Yeah.
we'd tape it up there.
Okay.
But also we taped it in the studio.
Okay.
And so I'll never forget, Joe Bonner was the third and the last one
Oh, wow.
that we had. But it was the longest running, Jack Edwards, Sonny Callahan, and then Joe Bonner. And Joe worked for them, you know, before actually he became he knew his back, he knew this stuff with his eyes shut,
Oh,
you know, because he was
wow.
their assistant, you know, so I knew him well. So I came in there to make sure that he invited Jack Edwards because it was one of his best, longest shows.
Okay.
So he said, come and get a picture with us. And I said, okay, because, you know, I was working with but I still treasure that picture.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
That's
I
an
loved
amazing
both
picture.
of them were remarkable men. And Sonny Callahan was too. But actually, for about 35 years at WKRG, I produced a lot of children's programming. You know, Rosie's Place, Youth Magazine, Kids and Company, and Small Fry News. Now, Small Fry News really was something. It was very different, and I really worked hard on that. I created it because it allowed more children to be on TV than just on a half-an-hour show.
Right.
You know, you may have 5 or 6, you know.
So,
But
so what did you go into planning, small fry news? So what was it,
there's a lot of mechanics who working.
for example?
Well, I had to go to I wanted to go to all the schools in the Gulf Coast, and they were willing for me to do anything. I had one van, and we'd bring the sets.
Oh, wow.
It was really obsolete in a sense for the day. We really didn't even have to bring those sets, but we brought them. I mean, back then.
Yeah.
And we worked with the principals of the school. I did. And 2 or 3 times we would think about a script to do, and then we picked the kids out. She had ones for me to pick out to do those things. So we had 2 anchors and 2 to 4 reporters when we went over to that school. And so it ran beautifully. People loved it. I mean, people loved it because their kids were all on it. You had a lot of kids on it. And they talked about subjects that was educational but entertaining. And today, if I go to the mall and do my walk, and that was quite a few years ago, it was just amazing because they'll stop me today and say, "Hey, Rosie, you know, we remember Rosie's Place. We loved it. You were always in that kitchen. A lot of times you were in that kitchen cooking a batch of cookies for Christmas." You know, and they said, "Oh, we watch Small Fry News." Those 2, you know, they remembered a lot. You know what I mean? But it was all great for me. But later on, I'll do that. But later on, someone that I worked at WKRG told me I had picked her to be an anchor when she was little. And she said she'd never forget it. And also this guy that worked at he was at Pure Heart of Mary School. He was African because I made sure African American children were on my shows. Rosie's Place, on my montage with all my white children, you know. And then I had Small Fry News, the same, all of them, you know. But he worked at Penny's. I mean, he was a security guard of all the securities at the mall, and I was walking there, and he stopped and told me how he loved me because I picked him out, and he went to, you know, he's African American. He said he'd never forget it, and I said, "Well, I loved your smile and your dimples, and that's why I picked you." So those kind of things, because the kids were really, all of them were rewarding, but Deborah Kennedy Gross now, she was in, I think Theodore, I can't remember what school, but she told me when I went to work to WKRG, and she was working there. She had just started. She said, "My God, you picked me. I felt so wonderful that you picked me to be an anchor."
Right.
So it's that kind of thing, to run into people today. But they were all adorable when I did it with them, you know.
Fabulous.
I did several other shows before I retired. I mean, I did, you know, that movie that we did, the Tricentennial movie. It was we aired it. WKRG did it.
Yeah.
And my position in that movie was to interview people and have that part of the history of
Mobile.
Well, I picked people that I thought would do it good. I did 50 of them.
Now, that was the We Are Mobile movie?
Yeah, We Are Mobile. And I picked the 50 people and I interviewed them myself, and they were remarkable because they were much leaders in Mobile. Like I was talking about, like Joe Lane. But it's so sad many of them are dead today that you could interview them, which would be great.
Oh, that would be.
They did so much for Mobile.
Yeah,
Either they were politically or physically, morally able, not physically or financially able to do so much.
Wow. Well, we'll be sure to add a link to this video to
that's
that
great
because
then,
on YouTube. So
yeah, because some of them were just fantastic people.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I did, the last thing I did really, I did Page 5, which was a joint project with the Mobile Press Register. And it was just maybe 2 or 3 years it was on. It's interesting. But when I did finally leave, the last thing I did do was I picked people to do the segments. I call them segment producer. I was a segment producer. And the morning news and the afternoon news, we have to have people on, not just the news.
Right.
So I would just book people that was talented, skilled, to come in and talk about these issues that were in the news, and then I also help the community people, the nonprofit organizations, to talk about, sometimes I'd book them on to tell about their fundraisers they were having, for abused women or, did anything like that. So that was the last thing I did there.
Oh.
But the whole time, since 1980 going back to 1980, I was a writer and doing books for children, and I did a couple of them here in Mobile because I was well known then about being a creative teacher with children. So the Mobile Chamber of Commerce asked me to do a book about Mobile for kids, and I did that. And then I did a book for the Drug Education Council. Virginia God that runs that. She asked me to do a book because it was just an activity showing about staying healthy and never doing drugs, And then I wrote for the Catholic Week articles.
Okay.
for the Catholic Week for children. It's called the Primer for parents and children.
No,
But then nationally, I wrote a lot.
and I believe you won an award. You said, I believe you won a community award.
Oh yeah, I did. After I was going to tell about that too. I won quite a few of them for such plaques and stuff for the I can't name them all for the nonprofit organizations in particular, but I did win the Mobile Press Club's Lifetime Achievement Award.
Wow.
And then Joe Bonner, who was as I said, we knew each other so well from television and other places. Joe had a flag flown over Washington in my honor for all my community work, he said.
Oh, wow.
And I have that flag and I have that plaque.
That's amazing.
And so it was so sweet of him and wonderful. And today, you know, I'm not writing right now. But I'm thinking about all this and basically looking back on my career, I would say this. Very few people could ever say that three most powerful people in Mobile, Alabama, and giving people and prosperous people that did such good things would ask me to work for them. And that is exactly what happened. And I did, and I was able to do my dreams because they put me in where I wanted to be.
Wow.
I really am blessed, I think.
Oh, yes.
Paula, I really do.
Well, thank you so much, and we appreciate you telling your story.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you, honey.
And that'll be it.